typically, when we talk about recruitment planning, strategy development, and screening based on competencies, uh, we start with the plan. What is the plan? How many people to be hired? Who's to be hired? Which level to be hired? At what compensation to be hired? What kind of criteria, skill set that you're looking for? So all of that starts with the first step, which is your recruitment planning. So if we talk about recruitment planning, some of the things which are very important is uh, because when you are recruiting Vidyut, I'm not sure you are, from which part of HR, but uh, when you're recruiting people who are experts in recruitment, they first get the intent, that is the number of people who are to be hired, or the profile that is to be hired, and they look at their own contacts. So typically, experienced recruiters have a large number of contacts in the market. They have great networks, and they start tapping their networks based on the intent they get. Then they get into very important decisions. One is make or buy. Make or buy is basically, do you have this talent in your organization? Would you like to recognize this talent and grow this talent to the next level, or to a different profile? Or would you like to hire talent from outside? Then technological dimension, which is nowadays that is very critical. What kind of technological awareness this person needs to have, this profile needs to have? Uh, how easily or how difficult would that be to acquire? Where would you look for this kind of a talent? Would you look for IT in IT companies? Would you look for this talent in HR outsourcing? So it really depends on the profile. But you need to be very strategic about where to look and when to look. Okay. So a good time to look is, when uh, the appraisal season is over, and people know exactly what, where they stand. Many of the people are looking for a change at that time, so that is a good time. uh, Also, there is, many businesses are seasonal businesses, and you can look in terms of season. Then source activation and selling. So here, selling really means that how do you attract talent to your position? Recently, I was helping the hiring of a training and quality manager. So, I put it up on my LinkedIn, and invited applications, uh, gave details about this profile, what is this profile all about, and tried to attract good talent. And then you look at screening, and because I got maybe 500 profiles, sorry, 50 profiles, and out of the 50, I had to look for only one. So I shortlisted out of that, and then further shortlisted, but I did not really get very good profiles. Anyway, so you have to do that activation, and last but not the least is evaluation and control. So you evaluate all the profiles. As I said, I shortlisted a few, but eventually none of them really made the grade. So these are some basic steps, very tactical steps that you take when you are hiring. So having said that, we will move to some observations nowadays about the global market conditions and how they are changing. So at one point of time in the 70s, 80s, 90s, hiring talent in India was not much of a challenge, and probably it was not much of a challenge, outside also. There were a lot of people looking for jobs, and if you uh, uh, floated one requirement, you would get a lot of applications. Today also, there are a lot of people who are looking for jobs, but there are certain jobs where there is a lot of competition, and there are too many options that some profiles have, like experienced IT engineers. They have, so many offers to choose from. Then in the BPO industry, people have so many options. and employees are constantly moving from one job to another. They stay in a company for max uh, a year or maybe two, but that's it, not more than that, and they keep moving on. So a lot of changes have been happening in the past. Companies were very distinct. So now what is happening is there are uh, new trends which are emerging in the job market. So earlier you had one company, you had employees in the company, but now what is happening is, one of the things that is happening is that you have a lot of people who are in the company, and there are a lot of people who are working with the company but may not be full-time employees of the company. Okay, so there are in America, there are a lot of people who are freelancing, who are working with multiple companies at one time, particularly like consultants. So you have more and more such people who are working with organizations, and therefore the entire job landscape is changing. Earlier, let's say, people used to have their own offices. Now you see there are a lot of people who work from co-shared offices or co-rented offices. Similarly, you have profiles who are working with multiple organizations and not with one particular organization. Now, globally, also there are a lot of changes which are happening. Like Japan, Russia, their population is declining very quickly, the working population, and therefore they are looking for talent from outside. Similarly, in USA and Western Europe, again, the population over there is not growing. They are growing only through people who are migrating to those countries. Otherwise, their own population is not really growing. India still has a surplus, but even India's growth has slowed down. And China is already in a negative growth. So these are big trends that are happening. And with COVID, what we have seen is there is a lot of internet usage. We are using the internet platform right now, and you have people who are constantly on the network. They are telecommuting, which is they are working from a home and not an office. And you have the new generation who are constantly on uh, you know mobile devices, laptops, in on iPads and whatnot. So basically, the entire landscape of work is changing. Okay. So any thoughts so far? Any questions? Any observations, Vidyut?
No, sir, it's okay, sir. So far, you are right, sir. Like lot of things are changing. Earlier, things were become like very routine and very, you say, sir, set pattern was there. Now things have become very dynamic.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
yes, as you said, sir, like sharing of office space or like even hiring of talent for a short-term period and freelancers and these things which have come now.
Yeah. So these are actually probably opportunities, probably they are challenges. I will not comment right now on it, but I think gradually as things are emerging, probably it's a good opportunity for more and more people to enter the job market on their own terms rather than on very formal terms as things were earlier. But let's see how it pans out. But these are, realities that we have to deal with every
Sir.
day. So, so when we talk about criteria, basically these are the basics. So, we look at the formal education of a candidate, we look at experience and past performance, we look at physical characteristics for some profiles where, like for example, hospitality. Uh, where people need to be presentable, particularly the front office people. Then in sports, we look at some physical characteristics also. And then you have, most importantly, personality characteristics. So these are some of the basic criteria that are used in talent requisition. So when we talk about hiring process, by and large, I think right across industries, the process is common, which is you have a minimum qualification, you screen the candidate, and there is an interview. First of all, there is screening at a level where all the resumes are screened. Then there may be a shortlist. The shortlisted people probably they go through a virtual or a telephonic round of interview. If that is satisfactory, then people come for a face-to-face or a Zoom. And then if that is satisfactory, then people get selected for final interview. So, but by and large, you can see that this is the initial screening, completed application, employee test, comprehensive interview, background examination if required, medical and physical examination, and then you have the job offer. So there is a permutation combination to all of this. Some companies have a medical test, some of them don't. Some people do a background verification, some people don't. Particularly in banking, insurance, finance, there is a lot of background verification because you don't want people with financial liabilities to be there in the industry. So, but by and large, this is the process that is followed, and there are various combinations of this. So the common methods that are used, testing, gathering information, and interviewing. So we'll talk a bit about all of these. So typically, going back and remembering the talent management process which we had discussed. So identify your strategic intent. Why do you want to add headcount? So this step is very important. This is part of your vision, part of your strategy. That why do you want to add the headcount? In many activities that we do in office, in life, if we go back to the first principle, that is, why are we doing this? Then you get a lot of clarity. So when you are doing a candidate selection, it's very important to keep the strategic intent in mind. Then identify the key people capability requirements. So what is it that I want them to be capable on? Identify the talent pools that is available. Develop and deploy talent, motivate and retain talent, and evaluate and review. So, having said that, we look at one very fundamental aspect of talent acquisition, which is a very strategic and a very, I would say, upstream activity, which is interviewing people basis competencies. Now, uh, so this is what a competency is defined as. Vidyut, would you like to read this?
Yes, sir.
Sure. Go ahead.
Competency is an underlying characteristic of an individual that is casually related to criteria referenced superior performance in a job. Underlying characteristic, deep and enduring part of person's personality and can predict behavior in a wide variety of situations and job tasks. And so casually related means that competency causes and or predicts behavior and performance. Criterion referenced means that competency actually predicts who does something well or poorly as measured on a specific standard or gauge.
Great. Thank you. So it is an underlying characteristics of an individual. So these are certain things. For example, I may be very good uh, in a crisis situation. So, but you will not see that every day because every day there is no crisis. But there are some people who manage a crisis very well. They retain their cool. They don't get disturbed. They are always clear in terms of what they need to do. So a lot of people have a lot of underlying characteristics, which may not be easy for somebody to screen in an interview. Okay. Now, but they result in certain behaviors, which for example, I may be a very good quick thinker. I may be a very fast speaker and can influence people. So that competency will result in my being able to get better sales for my company. And similarly, now these are slightly difficult to put a number to because I may be a quick thinker, I may be uh, a very resilient person, but you cannot put a number to how resilient I am. But at the same time, you can have a criteria referenced, which means that basically put a number and which actually helps you predict. So let's say I'm 3 out of 5 on my communication, uh, 2 out of 5 on my uh, anger management. 4 out of 5 on uh, being interactive with other team members. So, uh, can we put a scale? Can we put a scale to the competency? So, so basically, what we are trying to say here is that uh, this is going to be based, the hiring is going to be based not just simply I meet you, I like you, and I say, oh, you are from Kanpur, I'm also from Kanpur, we are friends, so I will give you the job offer. That should not be the case. It should be based on the competencies that I'm looking for this job, and I see those competencies in the candidate in front of me. And then I will be clear that yes, this is the right profile. So competency is made up of capabilities, behaviors, and then the output or the result that you get. So
Outputs.
yeah, Vidit, you had a question?
No, sir. I was just telling sir. Compliance.
Yeah,
Sir, capabilities, behavior, and output, sir.
absolutely. So in capability, we're talking about knowledge, skill, attitude, KSA. In behavior, we're talking about actions, thoughts, feelings, and then you get the output, which is your products and services, which is also your result. So by and large, that defines a competency. So how do you develop a framework using a competency? First of all, you create a job description. And your job description should ideally have a list of the competencies that you're looking for. It could be some set of behaviors that a person should have led a team very well. A person should have good exposure in sales domain, and so and so forth. Then you have focus group discussions or FGDs with the top performers, and you have performance management, so, you know, system data, and identify differentiating competencies. So when you look at this, because when you're defining a competency, what happens is you first of all look at the JD. What does the job need? Then you look at, for example, let's say I'm a sales manager. Now I'm creating a framework, competency framework for a sales manager. So I will do focus group discussions with the best sales manager, and I will find out what helps them become the best sales manager, and I will put that as a competency. Then
Sir.
what are the behaviors, identified behaviors, and how do you differentiate between those behaviors as to, for example, a sales manager. Now sales manager uh, is a very extroverted person. So I'm looking at somebody who networks easily, comfortably, who interacts with people very comfortably, who has good communication skills. Now here, if I get 10 people who have similar skills, I need to know how to differentiate the best from the others. So there I will have to also ensure that not only will I identify the competency, but who are the best in that competency. So a scale will help me. And I will formalize the behaviors in a framework which can be used for planning, talent acquisition, performance management system, learning and development. So once your competency is defined, you can use it for all of these things in your organization. So, so core competencies are competencies that all individuals in an organization are expected to possess. So the goal of core competencies is for individuals to be able to perform in diverse positions throughout the organization. And these are reflections of the company's values, their culture, their business imperative. For example, I worked in a company where it was an old company, but they decided that they are going to be very agile. They are going to move forward very fast. So what they did was, they created a set of values. They said that these are values which will make us very change oriented and very entrepreneurial. You know, so they created those values, and they wanted everybody, all the people in the company, the existing people and the new people coming in, should have those values. So they said, uh, always ahead, genuine, innovation, learning oriented, and entrepreneurial. They had these values, and they wanted to find these values in the core competencies. Then there are transferable competencies, which are required in various roles. For example, managerial skills, leadership skills, So suppose somebody becomes a manager, so they will be expected to manage a team, communicate well, understand a little bit of finances, they interact with stakeholders. So those are some skills which people are expected to have depending on the roles that they are in. So they are transferable. And last but not the least, you have the technical competencies. So many roles require technical competencies. So those are, for example, a marketing research requires people to know data analytics, research, uh, you know, maybe some modeling, data modeling, etc. So all of this is required, and so these are specific kinds of knowledge which may not be required of other people in the organization, but is required by people who are in a specific role. Is it making sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So here is an example of a company called Haya Water Core, Haya Water. This is a company which is based, I think, in Dubai. So, so you can see their, their values are uh, core competencies, which we talked about. They reflect Haya's values, culture, and vision that should be exhibited by all employees. So, what are they looking for? They are looking for, first of all, a customer orientation. Any employee should be friendly, customer friendly, should be outgoing. Uh, Sometimes what people say is that, look, I'm in finance, I'm not dealing with customers, so I don't really need to have this value. But this organization believes even if you are not dealing directly with customers, there is a certain value system in the company, and therefore you need to be customer oriented even if you're not interacting with customers. So basically they are also saying that everybody has a customer. You may not have external customers, but you would have internal customers. For example, if I'm in finance, then I am ensuring the reimbursement of people. I'm ensuring that the payroll is processed on time. So there are a lot of people who are waiting and dependent on me. So everybody needs to be customer oriented. The customer could be internal or external, but orientation needs to be there 100%. Next is process and quality focus. So they want everybody to have a process and quality focus, which is actually very good because then you are process oriented. Very often, systems break down. We are not able to achieve what we set out to achieve because we don't appreciate that there is a process behind this. And we just look at a task as a standalone task, whereas it is actually part of a longer process. So process and the quality focus. So we should be very conscious about the quality. Next is achievement orientation. So people should be oriented towards achieving the goals that they have set for themselves, for the organization. And so that achievement orientation should be there. People should be kind of excited to go and achieve. They should not be like, okay, now I've got a job. I don't need to do anything. Up bus aram karne ka hai. That is not the attitude they are expecting. People should be like dying to go and do more. So that is what they're looking for in a candidate. Next is communication. People should be communicative. People should not be reluctant to communicate, and they should be open about it. And last but not the least, teamwork. They want people who work in teams, who are comfortable working in teams. There are a lot of people who want to work in silos, or they want to work as individuals. But even if that is the case, but they should be comfortable working in a team as and when that is required. So these are some values on which the core competency of this company is based on. Now this is applicable to all roles in higher water, as you can see, not just senior or junior or middle, but to for everybody. So now uh, when we talk about the competency, we saw the values earlier. So these were the values. Now we see the uh, competencies coming out of the values. You can see that achievement orientation, there should be drive for results. There should be accountability and ownership. There should be planning and organizing. So when I am looking for achievement orientation in the candidate, I will not look, I will ask him that are you oriented towards achievement? So candidate may or may not understand that question. Instead, I will ask, okay, drive for results. So, how strong is your, if you are given assignment, how strong is your drive to achieve the outcome of those assignments? What do you do? Give us an example. Last time when there were two assignments that you were given, how did you achieve the required outcome? What did you do? Similarly, we will say that, okay, planning and organizing. Now, give us an example of how well you plan. Okay. When was the last time you had to do extensive planning? You faced some challenges and you overcame those challenges. Why don't you tell us about that? You know, so achievement orientation. Similarly, process and quality focus. When was it that you worked on improving your process? Next is teamwork. You should have. Do you have respect for diversity? Do you treat women well? Do you treat people from other cultures and other communities well? So do you have respect for diversity? That is very important. Customer orientation, understanding customer needs, meeting customer requirements, sensitivity and respect for customers. So this is, as we discussed earlier, absolutely critical, particularly for organizations which are dealing with customers and in B2C space. Last but not the least is communication. This is again very, very important. Okay, so I hope this is making sense with you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
Perfectly fine, sir.
Free to ask any question which may come to you.
Sir.
Okay. So now you can see how each so achievement orientation is the value over here. Now this particular value results is broken down further into behaviors, and then the behaviors are further broken down into the levels. So the lowest level is the level which executes day in day out. They are not responsible for planning, they are just executing. So what how do we know that at that level the person has achievement orientation? So we see that the person works hard to meet the goals, displays accountability, plans her own work, identifies resources and timelines. So that shows that this person has achievement orientation. Somebody who's at a slightly higher level, they you can see displays flexibility, accountability, plans activities for the team. So all of that. And then you have people who are like senior or middle management, who focus on achieving challenging goals, involve employees in goal setting, and understand strengths and weaknesses. And then you have the leadership. What does it achievement orientation mean for leadership? Establishes systems and processes for rewarding, recognizing, and differentiating high performance. They take accountability and ownership for organizational goals and establish and institutionalize planning processes. So that is your achievement orientation. So moving on, similarly, like achievement orientation, similarly, all those values, and when you are selecting, the selecting methods should reflect your values and the behaviors that you're looking for. And and then you can use various methods to test those behaviors. You can have cognitive ability test, personality test, physical ability test, integrity test, drug test, and work sample testing, where you can ask them to create something. Nowadays, it's very common when you go for a job interview, people do not simply talk to you. They also ask you that, okay, let me give you a situation, and how will you come up with a solution to this? And then you are expected to actually create some sort of a solution. So so nowadays, that way, the selection methods are actually become more stringent, particularly for more senior levels. Now, this is an important point which I want you to understand, and I think this is being recorded and this video is going to be uploaded. So as and when others see it, they should also be able to understand. So first of all, there are humans are like icebergs. You have icebergs floating in the European seas, in Atlantic Ocean, and other places. So on the from the surface, when you see an iceberg, you can see a small part. You can just see the top of the iceberg. Now you don't know how big it is, how big the iceberg is beneath the sea. And that is what happened to the Titanic. They did not realize that they had hit a very big iceberg. From the surface, on top it looked like not a very something very significant, and they missed it. But uh, uh, but actually icebergs are pretty big under the water. So human personality is like this, that we are not really able to understand a human personality from what we see on the surface. But when you are an experienced recruiter, then you can actually, your job is to see beneath the surface. Okay. So some of the things that we can see on the surface is knowledge and skills. So I can, like, we saw the testing. So you can test people for knowledge, for skills, and you can see whether they have that knowledge or they have that skill. Then what are the abilities they have? What are the habits they have? Like, are they very good at managing time? Are they bad at managing time? Are they good at managing priorities? So all those habits are something which you can see on the surface. But now there are a lot of things which you cannot see on the surface. Okay. So those are the values of the person. What kind of values does the person have? The person may be nice to talk to, but maybe very insulting when dealing with women. you know I had a boss once, and he was very knowledgeable, and he was very experienced also. And he always said good things, like, you should be a nice person. You should uh, treat your team well. But somehow, when it came to women, he always made casual remarks about women. Or while he seemed so knowledgeable in all other areas, even when it came to women, but his actual behavior was not very good. It was actually quite demeaning. So it was a big surprise that, while he says all the good things, so what I understood is that his value system, there is a problem with the value system. It is deep down. You can see, your traits, thoughts, emotions, values, those are under the water. And so this is not easy to see. But gradually, with extended interaction, you can gradually understand people's value systems. Next is attitude. you know Ability I can understand, but what is your attitude? Attitude is something which is takes shape at a very early age. And am I pessimistic? Am I optimistic? Am I arrogant? Am I humble? So all of those things get shaped over a longer period of time, and it's difficult to shake it off suddenly. For a job interview, you cannot become a different person. So this is there under the surface. Same with traits. There are common traits of people, and so that is common between them. People, maybe there are some people who are always on time, who always do things on time, and there are some people who always do things at the last minute. They can never, no matter how much time you give them, they will always do things at the last minute. So that is a trait. Their motivations, what excites them, what motivates them, you don't know. you know Sometimes it is money, sometimes it is teamwork, sometimes it is just caring for others. So it's very difficult to put a finger on that, what motivates a particular individual. So these are certain things that an expert recruiter tries to keep in mind when she is recruiting someone. Okay. So, so this is similar to what other slide we had talked about, different kinds of testing. And here it's important to point out that you can also test things like motivations, values, attitudes. There are assessments in the market which help you to do that, like Hogan assessment. They help you to evaluate motivation, values, things which are typically very difficult to evaluate. Okay. So then you do your information gathering, you find out about people, you know, uh, what kind of profile I'm looking for, what kind of people are available in the market. You do a mix and match, and then you kind of look at their application forms and resumes, their biographical data. You may want to do reference checking. Nowadays, another thing which has become very common is if you give a profile, then people will go to your LinkedIn profile or go to Facebook or go to Instagram and check your social media footprint also. And uh, sometimes you feel that the person who you met and their digital presence is very different. I had a candidate once. Um she was a very modest person, very polite, very nice. I interviewed her. I liked the candidate, and uh, then nothing against the candidate, but my HR went and checked her social media profile and realized that she's also a fitness freak. She goes to the gym. She is an expert dancer. So it was amazing that this person who had just come for one regular simple job had so much to her, which was not really apparent in the interview. So good thing actually that this came out through the social media. Some companies have a process policy against social media. They don't want to go to social media. Some companies do. So that is still kind of open to debate. But I feel that maybe a LinkedIn profile at least can be sourced, if not Facebook and Instagram, which are personal. So the selection for test. So let's look at one particular video where this expert is telling us about competency-based interviewing skills. In case you can't hear the audio, just let me know.
I want to talk about competency-based interviews. Competency-based interviews are increasingly being used as the main recruitment process for new positions. Public sector organisations, widespread, are using competency-based interviews. They've developed their own competency frameworks and they assess candidates against those. Increasingly now, we're now seeing it coming into private sector organisations as well. They're a very different type of interview than candidates have previously been used to, but actually they're a really good process that candidates can prepare for and can really perform very well in that competency interview environment. The theory behind competency-based interviews is that when we interview a candidate against some agreed criteria and our questions are specifically focused on getting them to talk about real experiences about where they've performed against these criteria, that this is a much more effective way of assessing candidates' capability. Research has shown that competency-based interviews are 5 times more effective in making the right appointments at interviews. The difference with competency-based interviews is the questions. When you're applying for a position, on your application form, on the person specification, there will be listed a number of criteria that you're going to be assessed against. And when you arrive at interview, the types of questions you're going to be asked are going to be very different from you previously being asked. Previously, for example, on communication, you might be asked, tell us about your communication skills. In a competency-based interview, you will be asked, please give us a specific time when you communicated exceptionally well. You're required to give a specific example, not to talk in general, but to give a specific example. So when you're preparing for a competency-based interview, the first thing you need to do is you need to identify the competencies of the role. And this information will be on the job pack, it'll be on the person's specification. So you need to identify what those competencies are, and then you need to start drawing back from previous experience and thinking about what examples you can deliver at interview that will demonstrate those competencies. So what's your example on teamwork, on leadership, on strategic thinking, on managing in a difficult situation? These are the type of examples that you need to start to work on in terms of preparation for your interview. Now, there's a way that you can structure that most effectively, and that's by using share as a structure. So when we talk about share, we're talking about 5 things. We're talking about, firstly, you describing the situation. So what was the situation when you demonstrated effective teamwork? H is the hindrance. What were the challenges? It's really important when you give your competency-based answers that you tell them about the challenges. If you don't tell them about the challenges in the example, then they're not going to know how good you were in terms of the results you achieved at the end. Then you talk about the action. What action did you take? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You list the action you took to demonstrate that good teamwork. The R in share is the result. What was the result? What did you achieve from that example? And the E in share is evaluation. What did you learn? It's really important to demonstrate your learning because it's your learning that you will bring to this position. That's what they'll be interested in. When you get into your interview situation and you have all your examples prepared in the share model, it can be really useful, again, to have a very simple structure on answering these types of questions. Remember the rule of 3. We like a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's a logical way to deliver information. So with your competency-based answer, a very simple structure you can use is, for example, your panel asks you a question. Tell us about a time when you communicated a challenging message. So your introduction is, I realise that communication is going to be really important in this particular role. And I've had many experiences in previous roles where I've had to communicate challenging messages to individuals and teams. But let me tell you about this one specific time. You've introduced. Now you use your share example. So you take them through your share example on communication. You talk about the situation, the hindrance, the challenges, the action, the result, and the evaluation. When you finish delivering your share, you then move on to your conclusion. And what can be really useful to do in your conclusion is to summarise 3 points that make you an exceptional communicator in challenging situations. So, in your ending piece, in summary, I know that this example demonstrates my strengths in communicating in challenging circumstances. And I know what makes me a good communicator in these types of situations is that I take on board all the team's needs, I listen very carefully to concerns and ideas, and then I evaluate the effect of communication. So we've got our beginning, our middle, and the end. This is how we approach competency-based questions.
Okay, so Vidyut, I hope you were able to hear the whole video.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so any key takeaways from the video?
Sir, so it was like a little quick, but then if we say, sir, they initially they had, she said about 5 things, and in 3 parts we need to see. Like it has to, we have to have like some kind of real life story on which we need to base our interview. What we have achieved, and how do we present it? Like what were the challenges? What were the results which we faced? What was our planning sequence? And then we have to relate it with the end to the beginning. And this is how it's like we have to relate it to our competency which we have. Just
Right.
not saying which we are able to do. How did we do it? What was the achievements? What was the process which we went through to make it a more realistic situation?
Okay, yeah, and great. So you're absolutely right. I think you had a good number of takeaways from the video. It was, I admit that it was a bit fast. So she's saying that it's not just enough to meet people, find out about their name, background, qualification, experience, but important thing is to find out what sort of a person the candidate is. Is the candidate, what are their strengths? If they have specific strengths which they are claiming, then they should be able to give examples from their experience. And you will see that in some interviews, the same thing is asked again and again in different ways, because the interviewer is trying to find out if the candidate uh, really has that capability or not. And she gave a very simple acronym, share. So how you can share any example of your experience is through using the share acronym, which stands for situation. What was the situation you were in,
Sorry.
because it's very important for the candidate to explain that this was situation, because the interviewer does not. Then you have to talk about the share sh, what are the hindrances or what are the obstacles that the candidate faced, because that is also very important, that needs to be explained. Otherwise the interviewer will not explain understand that how difficult it was for this person to achieve that. So you explain the obstacles that are there, in front of the candidate, and then very importantly, what is the action which the candidate took. Okay, and that is where you understand this candidate's profile, which is how is she, how is he, is the person resilient, is the person innovative, is the person open minded. So all of that comes out through the actions. And then you ask for shar. R stands for results. What were the results this person was able to achieve, you know and was it the right result, was it what the person was looking for, or only maybe 25% of what they were trying to achieve. So that gives us a sense of how this person works, how this person seeks to achieve. And last but not the least is share. E stands for
Hmm.
evaluate. So you evaluate the entire process, you see whether this candidate is kind of really the sort of candidate that you're looking for, in terms of competencies, in terms of orientation, in terms of values, and then you take a call. For example, I will give you a small example. We were looking for a business leader once, and we wanted a business leader who's very good on change management, who it does not simply does the regular thing, but also is very good at, if required, changing the business in a certain way. So we were interviewing a candidate, and this candidate was very talkative, and claiming I can do this, I can do that. Now we were not sure how much of it is real, how much of it is just confidence that the candidate has. So we tried to probe in terms of what are the changes that you have brought about, and what are the successful initiatives that you have taken. So gradually it came out that this person was handling a large international BPO of a company, of a bank, and they had a captive of about 500 people, which they wanted to spin off as they wanted to close it and then outsource the business to one Indian company, any particular Indian company. And so this person actually led that initiative, and he ensured that the captive PPO that they had, this was closed down, and none of the 500 people lost their jobs. They just got aligned to the company to whom this business was outsourced. So it was actually a pretty smooth operation. And when we cross-checked from the market, we found out, yes, he had indeed led such an initiative. But that was not coming out, and it was only through a focused interviewing skills that we found out that this is what this person did, and it was done in a very smooth way. And obviously then we decided on behalf of selecting this candidate. So this competency based interview really helps to penetrate beyond what the candidate is claiming or talking about, and also helps you align the candidate to your value system, to your competency framework. So that's how it is useful, and it is strategic talent acquisition in a talent management framework. One should be using a competency framework which is based on your values and your business priorities. Okay, having said that, so today actually you are the only participant, and I am, the facilitator. So, we have practically come to the end of the session, and because there hasn't been much of questions and discussions, a little bit that you and I had. So, apart from this, I had this activity which I wanted to be done in a team, uh, but I'm not sure, how comfortable you are doing this. Maybe you can take a screenshot of this, and you can do this on your own. So this is about a company, which is a 10,000 crore company, which is in the business of engineering, EPC, engineering, procurement, and construction. And it is part of a very premier group in the country. It has about 4,500 employees, and has about another 12,000 who are not on their roles, but who are working for this company. And Tin Plate Project Limited, TPL, gets a new contract, which is an engineering challenge, which is to create a blast furnace for the client, who is a steel manufacturing giant in the country, and the project is called Blue Diamond. So TPL has received this contract after facing stiff competition, and won it basis very competitive pricing. So you can see that pricing is a challenge. And when they are acquiring talent, it will not be easy to attract the best talent, because they have to be very price conscious. And then committing to a project timeline of 36 months. So, which, if not met, will result in TPL have to pay penalties, just as early delivery will result in rewards. So, this is the situation. I wanted to divide into two groups, but I will skip this slide. This is what I want, to for the solution to be around. So, number of people who are likely to be screened to hire 1,000 people, the kind of talent that you will need to acquire. So there could be, X number of people who will be, engineers, then planners, then procurement people. So all of that, then supervisors, project managers, all of that you will need to require. Approximate cost of acquisition, budgeting, a backup plan for any emergency that may happen. How much time will it take to hire this talent? Uh, then interlinking with company hiring and project hiring, backfill versus ramp up. How many you can probably source from inside the company, and how many you have to get from outside. Same goes for make or buy. Then what kind of a attitude would you want them to have? What these new people, we just talked about the competencies, and how will this align with your internal competency model. So these were the questions which I had. So would you like to take it as homework, or would you like to do it now?
So what I'll do is, sir, I've taken the screenshot,
Okay.
and I'll do it in the home at the home. Plus, I'll circulate it to the fellow students. Anyone who attends the class in the next
Right.
week, I
Okay.
will them if they can. If anyone who attends, and if the person has prepared, then we can discuss it out in the.
Okay. Okay. That's pretty good.
Sure.
Great. Thanks. So I will close now. So we are closing a bit early, as I mentioned, because it's
Yes, I
just you
didn't.
and me.
So that's why the class got early, finished early.
Yeah. So any questions that you have, on what we have discussed today?
So on the face of it, I don't find anything. But once I go through the study material, probably in
Mhm.
the next when I come, then we'll have. I might come up with some questions. Sir.
Okay. Okay. Great. Where are you working with youth?
So I work for India Tourism Development Corporation.
Okay. ITDC.
I'm based in New Delhi,
Okay.
and I'm posted in the corporate office of I'm attached to the director commercial and marketing
Okay.
as a
This is
senior.
in Connaught Place, right? In Janpat. No?
And we have our office at CGO complex.
Oh, okay.
Sir, we
Lodi
have a
Road.
very small office at Janpat. 88 Janpat is like one person sits over there. The
Okay.
rest, the entire management, we operate from the CGO scope complex.
Okay. Okay. Great. Vidyut, thanks for your time. Hope you have a great evening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, sir.